I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd end up writing something like this. I'm 24, working a job I don't hate but don't love either, living in a small apartment outside Denver, and mostly keeping to myself. My friends always joke that I looked too young for my age, baby-faced, always getting carded, the kind of guy women see as harmless. And for most of my life, I guess I really was harmless. I dated a little in college, nothing serious, nothing that lasted long enough to leave a mark. But then there was her. The woman who somehow became the most intense, confusing, magnetic part of my entire life. Elena, 34 years old, and the last person I expected to feel anything for. We met in the most unromantic way possible, at a late-night grocery store. I'd worked a long shift, my fridge was empty, and the only thing keeping me upright was a Red Bull and the promise of frozen pizza. I turned the corner with my basket and almost crashed straight into someone. She steadied it with one hand before it tipped, quick reflexes like she'd been expecting it. "Careful," she said, calm, low voice, not annoyed at all. That was the first thing that disarmed me. Most people would have thrown a look or scoffed, but she just smiled. A small, knowing smile, like she had already judged me but wasn't going to tell me how I scored. She had this presence that hit me before anything else. Not just her looks, though she was stunning in a way that made my brain short-circuit. Dark hair in loose waves, sharp eyes that looked like they saw more than she said, and this quiet confidence that made the air feel heavier. Her posture, the way she moved, the calm calculation behind every small gesture. You could just tell she lived a lot more life than I had. I muttered something dumb like, "Sorry, long day," and she glanced at the drink in my hand. "Working late?" she asked. "Yeah, you?" She gave a short laugh. "Always." I didn't know what that meant then, but I understood it later. The way she talked, the way she listened, it made you want to give more than you should. We ended up walking down the same aisle twice, then 3 times. Accidentally, I swear. She grabbed a bottle of wine. I grabbed the cheapest frozen pizza. I caught her smiling when she saw it. "What?" I asked, half embarrassed. "Nothing," she said. "Just nostalgic." That hooked me more than it should have. Nostalgic? For frozen pizza? I didn't ask. I didn't want to ruin the little thread connecting us. We met again at the self-checkout. She tried to scan her bottle. The machine beeped, and she rolled her eyes like she'd been through this before. I stepped forward before I even thought about it. "You need someone over 21 to approve that." I joked. She lifted an eyebrow. "You're over 21? "Barely," I admitted. That made her laugh, a real laugh this time, warm and slightly mocking, but not unkind. When the employee finally came over and tapped the screen, she looked at me and said, "Thanks for the moral support." I don't know what possessed me, but I asked, "Do you live around here?" She hesitated, just for a moment, barely noticeable, but it was there. A flicker of caution, of distance. "Nearby," she said. "Why?" I swallowed. "I don't know. Just making conversation." She studied me then. Really studied me. Like she was flipping through some internal file, deciding whether I was harmless, interesting, or a waste of time. Eventually she said, "You seem young." "I am," I replied. "Is that a problem?" She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her bag, adjusted the strap over her shoulder, and said, "Have a good night." "Ethan," I said quickly. "Elena." She started to walk away, then paused and looked back. "You shouldn't talk to strangers so easily," she said. "You talk to me first." "That's different." "How?" "You'll figure it out." And then she was gone. No dramatic exit, no long stare, just a quiet, confident walk through the automatic doors and into the dark parking lot. I stood there like an idiot, holding a plastic bag and feeling like something important had just slipped through my fingers before I even knew what it was. It should have ended there, but it didn't. Because the next night, at the exact same time, she was there again. And she wasn't alone. The next night, I wasn't planning to go back. I told myself it would be stupid, desperate, delusional even, to hope she'd be there again. It was a grocery store, not some magical meeting place where fate lined up perfectly 2 nights in a row. I spent the whole day thinking about her anyway. Her voice, the way she looked at me like she could see every insecure part one tried to hide, and that quiet confidence that made my chest feel tight. By 11:45 p.m., I found myself grabbing my keys and heading out the door. I tried to justify it. I needed bread, and eggs, and something for lunch tomorrow, and maybe fruit. Healthy people eat fruit, right? I rehearsed reasons in my head like I'd be stopped at the door and interrogated about my motives. I parked in the same spot as the night before. Stupid habit for a place I barely even visited. When I walked inside, the place was nearly empty, just the hum of freezers and some bored teenagers stocking shelves. And then I saw her. Not in the wine aisle this time. She was standing near the pharmacy section, holding her phone in one hand and a small black purse in the other. But she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her. He looked around 40, maybe a little older. Expensive-looking coat, neatly trimmed beard, the sort of guy who probably never bought frozen pizza in his life. He wasn't touching her, but he stood close, too close, and he talked with his hands, sharp, controlled movements that felt more like commands than conversation. I felt something sink inside me. Jealousy? Disappointment? Embarrassment for even hoping I'd see her again? Whatever it was, it sucked the air out of my chest. I tried to walk past unnoticed. But Elena's eyes flicked toward me for a split second. Quick, sharp, unreadable. Then she looked back at the man like nothing had happened. I grabbed a basket and pretended to examine protein bars I didn't even like. I shouldn't have listened, but their voices carried. "I'm not doing this tonight," Elena said quietly. "You don't get to ignore my calls," the man replied. "It was one call. It was 6. Her jaw tightened. "I don't owe you anything." The man lowered his voice, too soft for me to hear. But whatever he said made her posture go firm and cold. I didn't know what their relationship was. Exes? Co-workers? Something messy and undefined? But I could feel tension radiating off her. Then the man noticed me. His eyes cut toward me, then lingered just a moment too long. Not suspicious, dismissive. Like I was a kid wandering where adults were having real conversations. He leaned close to Elena and said something in her ear. She didn't look at him. She just stared straight ahead. I should have walked away. I had no place in whatever that was. But my feet wouldn't move. After another whispered sentence, the man straightened up, slipped his phone into his coat, and brushed a hand down her arm. Possessive, gentle, rehearsed. Then he walked away. Elena didn't move for a few seconds, like she was gathering herself. When she finally did, her shoulders relaxed, and she took a slow breath. She didn't come toward me, but she didn't avoid me either. She walked into the next aisle, and my brain made the decision before I consciously did. I followed. She was staring at the shelf of vitamins, not really seeing them, when she said, "You didn't see that." "I think I did." She closed her eyes briefly, annoyed. "Well, pretend you didn't. Are you okay?" That made her look at me. Really look at me. "You shouldn't get involved, Ethan." "I'm not trying to. This isn't your business." "I know." She exhaled, long and tired. Not angry, just worn down. "He's not my boyfriend," she said suddenly. "I didn't ask." "You thought it." I swallowed. "I don't know what I thought." She looked away again, then said quietly, "He's someone who doesn't like hearing the word no." That landed heavily. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know her. I had no right to care as much as I already did. But I did. And the worst part? She saw it. "Elena," I said, voice low, "if you need." "I don't," she cut me off. "But thank you." She started walking toward the checkout. I shouldn't have followed. But of course I did. And that was the night everything shifted, not because of what happened in the store, but because of what happened in the parking lot. The air outside felt colder than it should have. One of those nights when the wind bites through your jacket and makes everything feel sharper, louder, more real. Elena walked ahead of me, her pace steady, her posture composed in a way that didn't match the exhaustion I'd heard in her voice minutes earlier. I kept a few steps behind, telling myself I wasn't following her. We just happened to be going the same direction. We just happened to have parked in the same area. We just happened to have collided twice in 2 nights like some cosmic joke. She reached her car first, a dark gray Lexus that fit her perfectly, elegant, quiet, understated but expensive. She opened the door, threw the small grocery bag inside, and then paused with one hand on the frame. She didn't look at me when she said, "You really should go home, Ethan." Her voice had softened. Not friendly, but not cold either. Something in between. Something careful. I stopped a few feet away. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay." She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "You're too young to worry about strangers in parking lots at midnight." "You keep mentioning my age," I said. "Because it matters." "Why?" She finally turned her head toward me, her hair falling slightly over one shoulder. Under the dim parking lot lights, she looked different. less composed, more human. A little tired. A little guarded. A little dangerous in a way I couldn't fully understand yet. You don't know what you're doing, she said softly. Try me. That earned me a look. Not annoyed. Almost amused. But underneath it, there was something else. Something that felt like she was fighting with herself. Why were you talking to him? I asked before I could stop myself. Her face changed. The light amusement vanished. That's not something you should ask. I didn't mean. You did. She shut the car door, but leaned against it instead of getting inside. Listen, whatever you thought you saw, you didn't see the whole picture. I didn't think anything. I lied. Yes, you did. She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear. But it's not your place to worry about. Maybe not, I said. But I still do. She stared at me then. Really stared. As if she was trying to understand something about me that didn't make sense in her world. You don't know me, she finally whispered. That's kind of the point. I want to. That was the wrong thing to say, or maybe the right thing, depending on who you ask. She closed her eyes for a moment, then shook her head. You're sweet. The word felt like a dagger. Sweet. The label older women give younger men right before pushing them away. Sweet, I repeated. That sounds like a polite rejection. It's not, she said quickly. It's a warning. A warning of what? She hesitated long enough for the question to sting. Elena, I said slowly. Do you want me to leave you alone? Her answer wasn't immediate. She looked at the ground, then at her car, then at the far end of the parking lot like she expected someone to be watching. When she finally looked up at me, her voice was steady again. No, she said. But I should. A cold rush moved through my stomach. Then why don't you? She stepped away from her car and walked closer. Not too close, just enough that I could feel the heat radiating off her, enough that her perfume, something warm and subtle, wrapped around me. You don't know what you're inviting in, she said quietly. Maybe I want to find out. Her expression softened at the edges, like she wanted to smile, but didn't trust herself to. You're persistent, she murmured. I'm curious. That's worse. She brushed past me then, moving toward the cart return area where a few stray carts were left scattered. I followed, unsure why, unsure what I expected. She stopped under the overhead light, turned toward me, and crossed her arms. Ethan, she said, I don't date younger men. You said the same thing about talking to strangers, I replied. And yet here we are. That finally pulled a real reaction from her. A tiny exhale, almost a laugh. You don't give up, do you? Should I? Yes, she said. But you won't. She turned away again, but there was a shift in her posture now. Less guarded, more conflicted. Like she was walking a tightrope between logic and something else entirely. We walked in silence toward the edge of the lot. She didn't ask me to stop. I didn't offer to. When we reached the row of streetlights near the exit, she paused one last time. I'm not someone you get to chase, she said without looking at me. I'm not chasing, I said. I'm here. She finally met my eyes again. That's the problem. Then she opened her car door, slid inside, and before she closed it, she added one last quiet sentence. Don't come back tomorrow. And then she drove away, leaving me standing in the cold with a single thought looping in my mind. I was absolutely coming back tomorrow. I spent the next day pretending to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying her last words. Don't come back tomorrow. Most people would take that as a boundary. A clear one. And I'm not stupid. I knew what she meant. She didn't want to encourage anything. She didn't want whatever was happening between us to become real. But everything about the way she said it, the hesitation, the softness, the contradiction in her eyes, none of that matched the words coming out of her mouth. By 10 p.m., I already knew I was going back. Not because I wanted to disrespect her wish, but because she didn't say it like someone who wanted distance. She said it like someone who needed it for reasons she wasn't ready to explain. And I wanted to understand those reasons. Still, I didn't go inside the store this time. I parked across the lot where I could see the entrance clearly. I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to crowd her. I just needed to know if she would show up again. Half of me expected her not to. Maybe she'd choose a different store. Maybe she'd go earlier or skip the trip entirely. Maybe that older guy from yesterday had something to do with it. Around 12:07 a.m., her Lexus pulled in. My heart kicked hard enough to make me grip the steering wheel. She parked 2 rows away, stepped out calmly, her hair tied into a loose low bun, wearing a long beige coat that made her look even more put together than usual. She didn't look around, didn't check her phone. She just walked toward the doors like it was any other night. I waited a minute, then got out of my car. I didn't follow her inside immediately. I didn't want her to think I'd been sitting in my car waiting for her, even though, technically, I had. So I slowed my steps, grabbed a basket, pretended I needed something from the baking aisle. I found her near the produce section, studying a container of strawberries like she was searching for imperfections only she could see. She noticed me instantly. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp or tense. She just inhaled, a small, subtle breath, and set the strawberries back on the shelf. "I told you not to come," she said without turning fully toward me. "I know. Then why are you here?" I could have lied. Said I needed groceries. Said it was coincidence. But her eyes weren't the type you lied to. "I wanted to see you." Her jaw tightened for a moment. "You shouldn't." "Maybe," I said. "But I still do." She turned and leaned slightly against the shelf, crossing her arms. That posture again, defensive, controlled, but with something soft underneath. "You think this is some kind of story," she said. "You see a mysterious older woman in a grocery store and decide she's supposed to change your life. That's not how things work." "I don't think anything," I replied. "I feel something." That made her look away for a moment, like she wasn't prepared for honesty that simple. "You're 24, she reminded me. "And you're 34. 35, she corrected quietly. "Okay, 35. I shrugged. "Still doesn't change how I feel." "You barely know me," she said. "Then let me." She pressed her lips together, clearly frustrated. But not with me, with herself. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "Why?" "Because I don't do this." She paused. "Not with someone your age." I stepped closer, not too close, but enough that she could feel I wasn't intimidated. "What exactly is this?" I asked. She blinked slowly. "You know what I mean." I didn't respond. I wanted her to say it. She didn't. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, picked up a basket, and said, "Walk with me." I followed her, not beside her, but slightly behind. She didn't rush. She didn't look at me. But she didn't push me away either. We moved through the aisles in silence. Every so often she'd grab something: coffee, dark chocolate, almond milk, the kind of thing someone buys out of habit. I pretended I wasn't watching her, even though I absolutely was. Her presence was impossible to ignore. Calm, controlled, beautiful in a way that made the air feel heavier. About halfway through the store, she stopped and lowered her voice. "The man from yesterday," she said. "His name is Adrian." I froze. She never volunteered information before. I didn't expect this. "He's complicated," she continued. "We worked together. We were close. Too close. And when I ended things, he didn't take it well." "Does he bother you?" I asked. She hesitated. "Sometimes." Anger rose in my chest, unexpected and sharp. "Do you want me to?" "No," she cut in quickly. "Don't get involved in that. You can't help, and I don't want you in the middle of it. You don't have to deal with it alone." She looked at me with something like disbelief. "You really don't know what you're stepping into," she murmured. "Then explain it." She shook her head. "Not here." Then she stepped closer, close enough that our shoulders almost touched, close enough that my pulse jumped. "Ethan," she said softly, "if I let this go any further, I won't be the only one who gets hurt." Her voice trembled for the first time, and that was the moment I realized her walls weren't built out of arrogance. They were built out of fear. Her words hung in the air, heavier than anything she'd said before. "I won't be the only one who gets hurt." She said it the way someone admits a truth they've carried too long. Quiet, steady, resigned. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just watched her, trying to understand the layers she kept hidden behind that calm, controlled exterior. "Elena," I said carefully, "you don't have to protect me from anything." That's exactly the problem. She turned away, gripping the handle of her basket tightly enough that her knuckles went pale. "You think this is simple. You think you're stepping into something exciting, something different. But you have no idea how messy my life is." "Then let me learn." She gave a tight, humorless laugh. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." I stepped closer, but not enough to crowd her. "Are you scared of him?" She didn't answer, and the silence was worse than any denial. "Elena," I tried again, lowering my voice, "if he's crossing boundaries." She finally met my eyes. "Ethan, stop. There are things you don't need to know." "But I want to." "That's another problem." We stood there in the quiet aisle between vitamins and organic cereal, surrounded by soft music and humming lights. but the tension between us felt more intense than anything that belonged in a grocery store at midnight. She exhaled slowly and said, "Let's get out of this aisle." We walked toward the back of the store where the freezers were. She stopped near the frozen food section, leaned lightly on her basket, and looked at me with a mix of hesitation and curiosity. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "Out of all the girls your age, why are you following me around?" Her tone wasn't mocking. It was honest, curious, vulnerable. I took a moment before answering. "Because you're the first person I've met in a long time who doesn't pretend," I said. "You don't try to impress anyone. You don't hide that you've lived real life. And you look at me like you actually see me." Her lips parted slightly, like the answer surprised her more than she expected. "That's dangerous," she murmured. "Why?" "Because I don't want things from you, Ethan. I don't want to take something you can't afford to give." "And what's that?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I could feel the meaning in her silence. Time, emotion, stability, maybe even innocence, whatever of it I still had left. She shook her head lightly as if trying to clear her thoughts. "This isn't a game. I know. No, I don't think you do. I have a life. A complicated one. And I'm not going to pretend I'm some fantasy older woman here to teach you lessons about passion and heartbreak. I never said you were. But you're looking at me like I am." I swallowed. Maybe because I don't know what else to do. Her gaze softened for the briefest moment. "You're good," she said quietly. "Too good for this. Maybe I get to decide that." She almost smiled then. Not quite, but the corners of her mouth twitched like she was fighting it. Then she stepped closer, close enough that I could feel her breath near my collarbone, close enough that the noise of the freezers faded under the pulse in my ears. "If we do this," she whispered, "if anything happens, it doesn't stay light. It doesn't stay simple. I don't do temporary. I'm not asking for temporary. That's what scares me." We stood there, eyes locked, the tension between us tightening like a wire pulled to its limit. Then she suddenly stepped back, as if she'd come too close to a flame. "Come on," she said, voice steadier. "I need to check out." I followed her to the registers. She didn't speak. Neither did I. Something had shifted, something irreversible, but neither of us said it out loud. At the self-checkout, she scanned her items with practiced ease. I paid for mine quickly and walked out after her. In the parking lot, the night was even colder than before. Our breaths fogged the air. She reached her car and turned to face me. "This is the last night we do this," she said. "You said that yesterday, and I meant it. You're still here." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She opened her car door, paused, and looked at me with an expression I couldn't decode. Longing? Fear? Frustration? All of it combined. "Ethan," she said softly, "please don't make this harder." "I'm not. I just don't want to walk away. That's what I'm afraid of." She got in her car, but before closing the door, she added, "If you show up tomorrow, there won't be any going back." The door shut, and she drove away, leaving me with a choice that had stopped being a choice the moment I met her. When I came home that evening, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the usual, comfortable kind, the thick, unnatural kind that feels like something has been pulled out of the room. Jessica was always doing something. Typing, pacing, talking to clients, humming under her breath while making tea. But now nothing. Just the fridge humming. I set my keys down and walked into the living room. Her laptop was on the coffee table, closed. Next to it, a cup of coffee she'd barely touched. The whole place looked like she'd stepped away for a moment, but the air told a different story. Something was off. I called her name. No answer. I checked the bedroom. Empty. Bathroom. Empty. Her phone lay on the nightstand. She never left her phone behind. Ever. A heavy, sinking feeling settled in my chest. After everything we'd talked about, everything she confessed, everything I admitted, I thought we were finally breaking through something. I didn't expect her to run. Not like this. I circled the apartment again, almost expecting her to walk out of the closet and tell me I was overreacting. But then I saw it. A single sheet of paper on the kitchen table. Her handwriting was neat, painfully neat, the kind she only used when she was trying hard to stay controlled. "I can't talk right now. I need some time to think." One line. "No, I'm sorry. No, I'll be back." No explanation. Just that. I read it again. And again. 5 times, maybe more. Each time it punched a little deeper. "I need some time to think." About what? About us? About me? About the age difference? About Tom? About the feelings she was terrified to admit? How long is some time? A few hours? A day? A week? I sat on the couch, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor. The silence had weight now, pressing on my shoulders, on my ribs, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to call her, text her, hell, go out and look for her. But if she left the phone behind, it meant she didn't want to be found. And that was the part that hurt the most. That night, sleep didn't even try to visit. I laid in the dark, replaying every word we said, every look she gave me. I kept wondering if I pushed too hard, or not enough, if I failed her, if she was trying to protect herself, or trying to protect me from something. By morning, nothing was better. The sun came up, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like a continuation of the same long, heavy night. At 10:17, someone knocked on the door. I jumped. When I opened it, standing there, holding a coffee cup, looking tense and exhausted, was Tom. Tom, the man she worked with for years. The man whose eyes yesterday told me there was history I didn't understand. He didn't say hello. Is she here? No, I said. She's been gone since yesterday. I figured you might know something. His jaw tightened. He stepped inside without waiting for me to invite him, like he'd done it before. And that bothered me. He went straight to the kitchen table and spotted the note. Picked it up. Read it. His shoulders slumped, like he'd been expecting something worse, but still hated what he saw. She didn't show up to work, he said quietly. She's not answering anything. This isn't like her. I didn't answer. I didn't know what he wanted from me. Information, or reassurance, or permission to panic. She's done this before, he added suddenly. The words hit like a slap. What do you mean, before? He looked at me for a long second, his expression softening into something almost tired. When she gets scared, he said. When things get too real. When someone matters to her more than she's ready for. He paused. She disappears. I felt something twist painfully in my chest. And you're speaking like you've been through this, I said. He didn't flinch. I have. He placed the note back on the table, carefully, almost gently. Then he looked at me. Do you love her? The question was sharp, direct. Yes, I said. He nodded slowly. Then brace yourself. This won't be easy. There was something in his eyes. Experience, regret, maybe even guilt. I swallowed hard. You talk like, I hesitated. Like you were the one she ran from. He didn't look away this time. I was, he said. More than once. My vision blurred for a second. And suddenly, I realized, I didn't just have to understand Jessica. I had to understand the past she was still trying to outrun. I didn't know what bothered me more, the fact that Jessica had run, or the fact that Tom seemed to understand it better than I did. He stood in my kitchen like he'd stood there before, like he belonged in places she lived. That thought alone twisted in my stomach, but I didn't say anything. I needed information, not pride. What happened between you two? I finally asked. He leaned back against the counter, rubbing a hand over his face, choosing his words carefully. We were something, he said. Years ago. On and off. Never officially together, never officially apart. She'd get close, then pull away, then come back when she thought she could handle it again. And you let that happen? His eyes flicked toward me, not offended, more like he understood exactly why I asked. I cared about her, he said simply. Still do. Not the way you think. He hesitated. And maybe not the way she needed. What way was that? The consistent kind, he said. The kind where you stay even when she starts running. I swallowed hard. So what do I do now? He looked at me the way someone looks at a kid standing in front of a fire he doesn't fully understand. That depends, he said quietly. How much are you willing to burn for her? That question sat between us like a dare. I'm not leaving her, I said. Not after everything she told me. Not after everything she tried to hide. He nodded once, slowly. Then you wait, he said. That's all you can do. You don't chase her, she'll retreat more. You don't blow up her phone, she'll shut down. You don't corner her, she'll run for real. And how long does she usually disappear? His jaw tightened. Last time was 3 days. 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of her disappearing like shadow into fog. 3 days of me pacing this apartment, trying not to imagine everything that could be going wrong. I exhaled shakily. And when she comes back? That's the part that depends on you, he said. On whether you're angry or patient, or scared enough to push her away by accident. He wasn't threatening me. He wasn't warning me. It was more like he was giving me the script for a role he'd already played. I hated that, but I needed it. He pushed off the counter. I'll let you know if I hear anything, he said. She'll call someone eventually. She always does. As he walked to the door, something hit me. Why are you helping me? I asked. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. Because she deserves someone who won't break when she does, he said. And you? His gaze softened the slightest bit. You might actually be that person. Then he left. The next 24 hours were a slow death by silence. Every sound made me jolt. Every car door outside, every buzz from my phone, every knock from the neighbor upstairs. My mind kept replaying her note. I need some time to think. Think about what? Us. Herself? Her past? The parts of her she never wanted me to touch? By the second night, I couldn't sit still. I took a walk. Then another. I ended up near the edge of town without even realizing how far I'd gone. I kept wondering why I cared this much. Why she mattered this deeply after barely a few weeks. Why her absence felt physical. Was this what Tom meant? Was this what she ran from? Someone finally seeing her, all of her, and not turning away? At 2:41 in the morning, when I finally forced myself to leave the cold and go back inside, I saw it. A shadow sitting outside my building. No movement. No sound. Just a figure curled on the steps, arms wrapped around knees, head down. My heart jumped into my throat. Jessica. Her hair was loose, messy from the wind. She was wearing the same coat from 2 nights ago. No makeup. Eyes red. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. When she lifted her head and saw me, she didn't smile. Didn't speak. She just whispered, "Can I come in?" There was no anger in her voice. No explanation. No apologies. Just exhaustion. And fear. And something else. Something raw and fragile. I nodded once and stepped aside. She walked past me, slow and shaky, like she'd been holding herself together with nothing but thread. The moment she crossed the threshold, her breath hitched. Not a sob, something quieter. A breaking. I closed the door behind her. She didn't turn around. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely holding. I didn't want to disappear. I just didn't know how to stay. I stepped closer. "Then let me help you learn." She finally turned. Eyes full of fear, guilt, longing, relief, all tangled together. And for the first time, she didn't run. She walked straight into me. She stayed pressed against me for a long time. Long enough for her breathing to steady. Long enough for the shaking in her shoulders to fade. Long enough for the silence between us to turn from painful to necessary. When she finally stepped back, she didn't look away. Her eyes were swollen, tired, softer than I'd ever seen them. Vulnerable, open, terrified. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The words were quiet, but they hit like a weight dropping straight into my chest. "Don't apologize," I said. "Just tell me what happened." "I couldn't think," she murmured. Everything felt too loud. You, me, my past, the things I haven't dealt with, all of it hit at once. She rubbed her hands together like she was cold, even though the apartment was warm. "And when I panic," she added, "I disappear. It's what I've always done. I thought walking away would protect us both." "Did it?" I asked softly. "No." She swallowed hard. "It made it worse." She walked into the living room slowly, looking around as if she expected everything to be different because she had left. She sat on the couch carefully, like sitting too fast might shatter her. I joined her, leaving enough space not to overwhelm her. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. "But I didn't know how to stay when everything felt like it was happening too fast." "It doesn't have to be fast," I said. "We can move at your pace." She shook her head. "But you deserve someone who doesn't run every time they feel something." "Then stay now," I said quietly. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. "I'm trying," she whispered. I slowly reached out and took her hand. She let me. That alone felt like a small miracle. Her fingers tightened around mine, hesitant at first, then firmer, like she needed the anchor. After a moment, she said, "I went to my sister's." I blinked. "Your sister? I didn't know you had one." "You don't know a lot about me," she said, and there was no accusation in it. Just truth. "But it's my fault, not yours. I keep parts of myself locked away. I tell myself it's safer. Then I meet someone who makes me want to open those doors, and suddenly I feel exposed." She paused. "I told my sister about you." I froze. "You did?" She nodded, a faint embarrassed smile pulling at the corner of her mouth. "She said the reason I ran was because I actually care about you. Deeply. She said if you were just some guy, I'd be fine. But you aren't just some guy to me. Hearing that made my pulse crash against my ribs. And what did she tell you to do? I asked. Her expression softened. To go back and stop being a coward. I couldn't help it. I laughed once under my breath. Smart sister. She is. Jessica took a deeper breath. And she also reminded me that if I keep running from everything that scares me, I'll end up alone. Again. She lowered her gaze to our intertwined hands. I don't want to run anymore. My voice came out rougher than I intended. Then don't. She lifted her eyes again. They were more certain this time. I want this. I want you. She paused. But I need you to understand something, Ethan. I'm complicated. I'm messy. I come with history and baggage and fears that don't make sense even to me. I'm not easy. Okay, I said. And I'm older, she continued. Not ancient, but older. I think too much. I overanalyze. I've lived through things you haven't. Okay. And sometimes I push people away without meaning to. Okay. She stopped, exhaling slowly. Why aren't you freaking out? Because none of what you're saying scares me, I said. Loving someone who's been wounded isn't scary. Losing them is. Her breath hitched again. I leaned in slightly, giving her room to close the distance. She did. Slowly. Deliberately. Like choosing to move 1 inch closer was an act of trust. Our foreheads touched. A quiet, warm moment. Gentle, intentional, but underneath it, something deeper simmered. Something she had been holding back for weeks. I missed you, she whispered. I missed you even more. Her lips brushed mine. Not fully. Not yet. Just enough to steal my breath. Enough to tell me she wasn't running anymore. Then she pulled back slightly and said the last thing I expected. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you from the beginning. My heartbeat stumbled. What is it? She hesitated. Her fingers tightened around mine. And she finally said, Tom isn't just my ex. She took a shaky breath. He's the reason I'm afraid to fall in love again. I couldn't believe how things had escalated in just a few weeks. After that intense argument at the art exhibit, I thought we might have reached a breaking point. But somehow, the tension between us had evolved into something more intoxicating. Every glance, every touch felt loaded with unspoken emotion. I found myself craving her presence, and I knew she felt the same. That Friday evening, she texted me. Meet me at the little cafe by the pier. I need to see you. My heart raced as I got there, the sunset painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. She was already there, sitting alone, a cup of coffee steaming in her hands. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a shiver run through me. We didn't speak immediately. I sat down, and she took a deep breath, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. I've been thinking a lot, she started, her voice soft but firm. About us, about what we're doing. I can't pretend I don't feel something for you. I reached for her hand. I feel it too. I can't stop thinking about you. Her lips curled into a small, almost shy smile. You're younger than me, but I can't deny the connection we have. I've never felt this way before, not like this. The rest of the evening felt like a blur. We walked along the pier, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at stupid things, sharing memories from our pasts. It was intimate but also playful, the kind of chemistry that made my chest ache with longing. By the time we sat on the edge of the pier, legs dangling over the water, the sky had darkened. She leaned closer, resting her head on my shoulder. I could feel her warmth, her heartbeat matching mine. I know this is complicated, she whispered, but I want to explore it. I want to see where this goes. Her words sent a thrill through me. I wanted that too. Every stolen moment, every secret touch. I wanted to dive into this forbidden kind of love, the kind that felt so dangerous but alive. We stayed there for hours, watching the moon's reflection ripple on the water, wrapped in each other's presence. Nothing needed to be said. Every brush of her hand, every gentle squeeze told me she was as invested as I was. And in that quiet, stolen moment, I realized that this wasn't just a fling or a fleeting passion. It was the start of something that could change both of our lives forever. Looking back now, it feels surreal how fast everything changed. Those months with her were a whirlwind of emotions, laughter, arguments, stolen moments, and late-night confessions. I never thought I'd find someone who could challenge me, excite me, and make me feel so alive, all at the same time. The night we finally decided to define what we were became a memory I'll never forget. We sat in her apartment, soft jazz playing in the background, wine glasses in hand. Her eyes held that familiar mix of mischief and intensity, the same look that had drawn me in from the start. "So, what are we?" I asked, nervous despite knowing the answer. She smirked, leaning closer. "We're us. Complicated, passionate, maybe a little reckless, but ours." I laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief. I couldn't argue with that. We had navigated jealousy, doubt, and the unspoken fear of getting hurt, but we had also discovered a depth to our connection I hadn't known existed. Over the following weeks, life settled into a rhythm that was chaotic in the best way. Weekend getaways, late-night drives, quiet mornings with coffee and conversation. These ordinary moments became extraordinary simply because we shared them. I learned more about patience, trust, and compromise than I ever thought I would at my age. She taught me that experience wasn't about being older, it was about understanding yourself and caring enough to grow alongside someone else. There were challenges, of course. Friends questioned us, and I had to face my own insecurities about the age difference. But every obstacle only strengthened the bond between us. We weren't perfect, but we were perfectly honest with each other. Sitting here now, I realize that our story isn't about a scandalous affair or a fleeting romance. It's about connection, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about love, desire, and partnership. And though I'm still younger, still learning, I know I've found someone who changes the way I see the world. Someone who makes me feel more alive, more seen, and more complete. And the best part? We're just getting started.